You getting it twisted, getting all jelly, cause you think I'm with them, but you know you're not ready. My truth got me up at 6 a.m. Tapping in the Zoom, cause my God is the REM. Straight up, he died for me. When I pull up, I know he got me. Don't play faves, we all his queens. When they say woman, they mean God.
Hey, good people. Welcome to Determined Women of Destiny, the place where passion meets purpose, where amazing women doing amazing things come to show off everything that they do. You will be influenced and inspired, encouraged and empowered, along with a whole lot of motivation so that you can believe dreams really do come true. I'm your host, Yvonne, the Motivator Man. Welcome to the show. I am your girl. I'm the host. I'm the community advocate, the author, the actress, the motivational speaker. I am that chick. Y'all know me, Yvonne, the Motivator Man. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And yes, I got the hoodie on. Ha ha! Just in time for holiday buying for your mamas, your nieces, your sisters, maybe even your brother wants to celebrate Determined Women of Destiny with me. If you're interested, go to my email, determinedwomendestiny@gmail.com, leave out the of, and just send me your name, your email address, and your size, and I'll contact you, let you know. It's only $30. And you see this on my wrist here? It says the motivator. You can put on their mom, you can put on there the world's greatest auntie, you can do whatever you want to. And this logo right here is on the back of my hoodie, and it's in large. Poof. So everywhere I go, people are like, let me see that. Surely you can't see it. But without further ado, I want to introduce to you my guest, Niko Flowers. Miss Flowers has a very interesting story. As you know, December 1st is World AIDS Day, and it is the day given to bring awareness to HIV and AIDS. And yeah, we run around here acting like we no longer have a situation. And I say situation because y'all don't want to realize people are still being newly diagnosed with HIV. And Miss Flowers' story touched me so much, I never forgot her. And I met her, I want to say about 15 years ago. Young lady, newly diagnosed. So I'm not going to tell her story because she can tell it the best. But I will tell you this, after hearing her story, you're really going to think about how you're going to interact with everyone around you to give them information about HIV. Welcome to the show, Miss Flowers. How you doing, Niko?
I am good. Survived yesterday with Thanksgiving. I'm good. I'm back home in Brooklyn now. So yeah, I survived today.
The
I survived
food,
today.
the family, yeah, you got to fight through all of that. I know.
I'm just
So,
thankful for being here today. Just
yes,
thankful for being here today. They say Thanksgiving is for Thursday, for Thanksgiving Day, but it's every day that I'm just like thankful.
and
I'm
I,
just grateful and thankful. Yeah.
and I'm thankful that you have not given up the fight to make sure that everyone knows about HIV and everyone knows how important it is to put yourself in a position to live your life safer. So let's start with your story.
So I was infected by a partner that I love in South Carolina. I went to an historic Black college university in Columbia, South Carolina, where I'm from. And the gentleman that I was together with in partnership with, I would say, we began having sexual encounters. Of course, they were unprotected because at that period of time, I felt that I wasn't a candidate
Mm.
for becoming HIV positive. Because from word to the street, it was a certain type of people or certain type of individuals that actually contracted HIV, and I wasn't a candidate. of one of those things that they were saying in the streets. Now I don't know how they came up with these candidates as far as like different types of people that only contracted HIV, because HIV doesn't have a brain. So how does it know which person it wants to be a part of? Like, so when I got my education in high school, it wasn't that. So once I became sexually active with this guy, it was in my sophomore year, I was ready to pledge. I was only, in college, and I've known I wanted to pledge since I was like a little girl. And I was like, okay, so I'm going home. I'm going to let everybody know I'm ready to pledge. I had just declared my major. It's like a whole lot of, limelight that's going on in my life at that particular time. And I was 19 years old. I was 18 when I met him, but I was 19 years old. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm about to do this. So I'm like, ready now. Just like everything that I was like, kind of like ready for. And so like, you see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like I'm about to, pledge and that, declare my major. Those are like, big things
Right.
that you're doing because it's what you're going to be doing going forward once you graduate.
Right.
So I went home and I lived with my aunt. I never lived with my parents, but I lived with my aunt, my dad's sister. And when I got home, I went to the mailbox, and of course, it was a piece of mail that was in the mailbox addressed to me. On front of the envelope, it was stamped big, bold red letters, confidential, and it wasn't sealed. So I proceeded to open it up, and when I opened it up, it said, "Dear Miss Flowers, you've been exposed to someone who's HIV positive, and you need to come in and get tested." My heart really didn't drop. I was kind of like shocked. I'm like, exposed to HIV? Like only particular people get HIV. I'm not HIV positive.
Now
They're
let's stop right there. And I want people to understand when you say particular people, and I'm not a candidate. And you see, at that time, it was the gay man's disease.
It was called GRID.
Right. It wasn't even HIV, and please, people, stop saying HIV virus because you're sounding crazy. It is human immunodeficiency virus. So there's no reason to put another virus on it. How to get that out. But the reason you're saying, when you hear say candidate, this virus was pigeonholed. So of course, if you're not a gay man, you're not thinking that unprotected sex is a problem for me. Especially I love him, he loves me. And we didn't even know what unprotected sex was. That term came out of the HIV era, okay? So we wouldn't even think about, oh, I'm having unprotected sex. I'm just having sex, but I'm not using the birth control pill, or I do have the birth control pill, but the pill doesn't keep you from a sexually transmitted disease. So now this term unprotected sex has come to life, and HIV wasn't something that we had to think about. So that's the reason why you hear us say, I'm looking at this shocked. Why me? I'm not a gay man. Yeah, right?
Exactly. Definitely so. So when I opened up the letter, I went in the house, acted like everything was fine. And then I started to ponder on it. I'm like, well, no, it can't be. It can't be. Like all weekend, I'm like, no, it can't be. It can't be. It can't be. And it seems like everything that I went home for took a backstage to it, because now you're talking about my health. So it was like, okay, well, I'm going to get this here checked out when I get back to school. Like, I'm going to get myself checked out. And that was like the only thing. But like I say, everything else took a back burner to it. And so like, pledging didn't matter at this time because of my health. Declaring my major, it didn't matter. I want to find out what was going on. So I left that weekend, went back to school. In between time, I went and got tested. And the place where had contacted me, which was the health department, happened to be down the street and across the street and down the street from the college that I attended. So it wasn't like, hard to get to. I can pretty much like walk. So I walked over there I let them know. I'm like, hey, I got this letter in the mail stating that I've been exposed to HIV and I know I don't have it. So y'all can go and test me. What do we need to do? So at that particular time, they had to draw blood and it took 2 weeks. Now it's only 20 minutes. But they had to draw blood and I had to wait 2 weeks, 2 long weeks. And within that period, I really wasn't thinking about it. But what I did, I put like when you're younger, you sort of like circle the days when you got your menstrual to kind of like, follow the days of when you're next menstrual. So what I did, I put a little dot on the calendar to let me know, well, that's the day I need to go back. And my roommate didn't know. She didn't think nothing of it. Like, we went, in the room together. She thought nothing of it. So I went back to get my test results. And I'm sitting in the nurse's office. And I also wanted to say I got what you call confidential testing. There's anonymous testing, because it's 2 types of testing that you get. You get anonymous or either confidential. Confidential, your name is stamped to it. Anonymous, they give you a code. So I chose to do the anonymous testing, and they told me to come back and then give the code, and then they'll put me back in the room. So I went back 2 weeks later and got my test results. I'm sitting in the nurse's office. Her back's turned to me, and she's filing papers in a file cabinet. And out of her mouth goes, "Oh, you positive?" So my 19-year-old brain, I'm like, "Oh, she's telling me I'm fine. Okay, that's great." So now I can get back to the basics, declaring my major. And now, now I know I'm going to, I just had to go back home like next weekend. So I'm giving her my life story. And she was like, "I'm not telling you all that. I'm telling you that you're HIV positive. You have HIV." And that's when it sank in, like, oh my gosh, like I have ruined my life. Now, who's going to love me? Who's going to want me? Now I'm going to die. I messed up. So all this like negative stuff started coming over me, like, oh my God, like, fear of the unknown, angry, upset, hurt, confused. I'm like, how did this happen? I'm like, only certain people, the specific people contract HIV. Like, what is he talking about? So, I began to cry. All these different emotions started come through me, and she must have heard me crying because I don't even know if I even looked up at her. And she says, "Well, oh, I don't know why you're crying. You should have been thinking about what you were doing when you were doing it."
Okay, we're going to break. We're going to break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss that insensitive remark that a 19-year-old confused, scared young lady received from a nurse that had her.
She was filing papers in her file cabinet, not even having the conversation with me. Like,
you guys come back. You guys make sure you come back. Determined Women of Destiny is more than a talk show or a podcast, more than a Facebook group or TikTok videos. It's a tribe that vibes. It's a networking hub for women to funnel ideas and endeavors, to connect, helping each other be the best version of themselves, independently and collectively. If you would like to be a guest on the show or would like to join this great group of women, please email determinedwomendestiny@gmail.com. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is Determined Women of Destiny. I am your host, Yvonne, the Motivator Man. You know what I always say? What you just coming in here for now? Shame on you. But I love you. I do. I love you. I love the support. But you need to come in the beginning, because now you got to watch everything and go back and watch it again. And that's okay. Just make sure when you watch it again, you watch it with a friend. Yes, the hoodies are on sale, the DWD. Hit me up at determinedwomendestiny@gmail.com. Give me your name, your email, your size, and I will contact you regarding how you can get one of these fabulous hoodies. Now, before we went to break, Niko was telling us about going to college, looking towards her future, claiming her major, and she's getting ready to pledge a sorority. And she gets a note in the mail telling her she's HIV positive. She goes back to school. She goes to a health center close to the school, and the nurse is so insensitive that when Niko starts to cry out, oh my goodness, you know, things are going not the way I wanted it to, my life is ruined. And the nurse says to her, you should have been thinking about that before. Come on, Niko, take us back to that one time. How did you feel when this nurse, not even looking up at you, filing papers, is going to hurl out of her mouth such a hurtful thing? You know, you should have been thinking about that before. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I felt even more hurt and dirty.
Wow.
Hurt and dirty, like, wow. And now that wouldn't happen. It would be totally different. Like, she wouldn't have made it out that room. I was close to the door.
She
But
said
I
she
was
would
in
have made
hurt
it out the room.
but yeah, I was close to the door. They would have had time to come in there to save her. Like, that wouldn't happen today.
Wow.
The Niko, the Niko,
Choke her. Choke her.
yeah. She wouldn't have made out the room.
Oh
They
my
were trying to get in the door. Yeah, I would have locked it. So yeah, that wouldn't happen today. But I felt like dirty and even more hurt.
And
That-
how, you know, how people approached it early on is really sad. Many of my viewers and listeners know I was a sex educator for over 20 years. HIV was my field. And I wasn't even thinking about it in 1988. I was a phlebotomist. That's somebody who draws blood. I worked at the clinic in Amityville, which was called Marjorie J. Post. Not Marjorie J. Post, I'm sorry. Maxine Postal Health Clinic. And I was a phlebotomist 3 days a week. And I just wanted to be a phlebotomist 5 days a week because I needed the money. I wanted to phlebotomy to make money, make more money than what I was making to take care of my child. And the administrator there kept saying, hey, Yvonne, you should take these classes. We were friendly, you know. We were the same age. Both of us were divorced. Well, I was separated. She was divorced. So we had a kindred, right? And she kept saying, take these classes, take these classes, take these classes. And I'm like, I ain't thinking about taking them classes. Child, I'm trying to make money out of child to feed. She growing out of everything. And I finally took the overview of HIV and AIDS. And it didn't click until I saw stats. And I'm an outcome person. And those stats said in 1988, 89, that 52% of all infected people, not just Long Island, not just New York, the 51 United States, all infected people were between the ages of 18 to 40, and they were African-American women. So now it hits home, because what you're saying is that everyone, 2% over half of the people that are affected that's me. So now I roll up my sleeves. Let's go. I need to do this. And I took every course possible. And I wanted to be a test counselor. And they kept telling me I had to be a social worker to be a test counselor. But yet they were sending the social workers to the phlebotomists to train them. And I said, I will not train a social worker to do a job that I'm trained for, because you're not going to train me to do a job that they're trained for. But if you want to strike a deal, we can strike a deal. And so that didn't work out. I went to People with AIDS Coalition. I was the hotline girl every Saturday. My daughter was a kid. She would sit underneath the table, you know, playing with her dolls. And I would be there on Saturdays, 9 to 5, because I had to do something. I had to do something. You know, all of these Black women infected, and I'm a Black woman, and we the same age. You know, we got to come together. And then to bring fast forward, working at another job years later, that's when I met you. And that's when I really, really, really started jumping in more so. And my car used to be filled with condoms all the time. I was the condom lady. I lived in a town called Wyandanch, which had a high number.
Wyandanch, okay.
Remember, Wyandanch in Amityville back in the day was fighting for #1 of newly cases. in not New York, not Long Island, the 51 states. We had the most cases. And so I would be out there handing out condoms. They called me the condom lady because I wanted everybody to use condoms because we were taught now safer sex was not unprotected sex. You need a barrier method. And that's where use the condoms, use the condoms, use the condoms came in. So getting back to your story about this nurse that just threw it at you. I just threw my piece in there because I feel your pain. When you said that, I felt it because I know what I felt when I first found out that 2%, over half of the people infected was us. You and me.
Right.
You and me. And here it is, a nurse is telling you, okay, you're infected. We sorry. We sorry now. Why wasn't you sorry before? You know? And so now you have to go back to your dorm after being treated like this and try and
No,
sort.
I actually left out of her office, but I had to get myself together because I was like, okay, if I leave my body here, people are gonna know. That was like, I put that in my brain. But when I left out of her office, I had to go see the social worker. I guess they had some kind of protocol. Well, okay, if a person upset, they need to see the social worker, which the social worker was much more nicer. But before I went to go to see the social worker, sit down in the waiting area, waiting for her to call me, my boyfriend walked in the clinic.
Oh.
My boyfriend walked in the clinic. He saw me sitting there. He knew I was upset. He could tell I had been crying. He knew it was like a lot of emotions. He looked afraid, scared, terrified. And he asked what I was doing there. I told him, though, well, I have HIV. Now, I don't know what you've been doing, but the truth is in the pudding, and you need to come clean on what you've been doing because you've been my only partner. Terrified, afraid. He was like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. Years later, it clicked. As I've been doing this kind of work, sharing my story, it clicked that I was his diagnosis. So, of course, he's in the social worker's office with me. Social worker's talking to me. He's looking terrified. I'm asking her questions. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. She's like, you're not gonna die. So she spoke life back into me. She said, you're not gonna die. She says, your blood work has been pretty good. She said, what are you doing now? She started, asking me questions what I was doing. And she said, oh, well, you still can go to school. You still can graduate. And I wasn't really hearing none of that because my thing is, I was told I'm HIV, and this knuckle didn't come up in here, see me outside in the waiting area, talk about he ain't got HIV. So my thought was, I wasn't even hearing her. She was like, oh yeah, you can still pledge. I wasn't hearing nothing. That was going in one ear and out the other. It wasn't even registering in the brain. So I'm like, like, no. But I remember her, and I remember her name. Her name was Miss Cohen. But she spoke like back into me. Even though I wasn't really hearing it and feeling it, I was still kind of like in numb mode of trying to process the diagnosis. Because if my man is saying, oh, he don't have it, where's my support? So even though you still want to be with me, but that means you still got it, boo-boo. You have HIV. You still want to be with me. Because I'm like, you telling me you have HIV, like that's not the process. So
I have a question. You said that you were his diagnosis. So that means somebody sent him a letter with a big red stamp on it.
Right. And he came there. I think he came there to get his test results, but he never did because I was there. Now he probably went back.
Right.
Because if you put in the timeline of when I went to go get tested, he probably went to go get tested beforehand too, but just made it there on that particular day. And God had it for me to be there to see him. But I put all that together, like as I was, going through life and sharing my story and writing everything out and didn't really paying attention. I'm like, wait a minute. One day it dawned on me. I was like, I was his diagnosis.
Isn't that something? And that's how crazy, if I can say that, it was in the beginning, because I remember, pregnant mothers. See, now as part of the testing, back in the late 80s, early 90s, and you were going to the clinic and you were pregnant, they would ask you, would you like to test? And there are pregnant mothers sitting there with positive test results saying, how did this happen? And how is this going to affect my child? You know, this is my husband. So now you know that your husband has been cheating, you're pregnant, and you're positive. We're getting ready to go to break. When we come back, Niko is going to tell us a little bit more about, just sifting through what could have been the rubble of her life, but she took everything she had to go through, and she is now one of the most sought after speakers when it comes to HIV. We'll be right back. Determined Women of Destiny. Welcome back. Listen, this show has so much into it. It's going to be a two-parter. That's right. You're going to have to come back next Sunday to check out part 2, because Niko Flowers has a lot to tell us, and I don't want to leave anything out. So if you're just tuning in, welcome. You're checking out Determined Women of Destiny. I'm your host, Yvonne, the Motivator Man. Yep, I have on the DWD, Determined Women of Destiny hoodie. And it comes in t-shirts too. So if you want one in time for the holidays, hit me up at determinedwomendestiny@gmail.com. Give me your name, your email, and your size, and I will get back in touch with you. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Now, before we went to break, Niko was talking about how she realized that she was this guy's diagnosis. He didn't know he was positive, just like she didn't know until she received a letter in the mail, and evidently he received one too. So you said you're at the health center. The two of y'all are talking. He's denying this vehemently. No, I don't know what you're talking about, girl. It ain't me. It ain't never now. It ain't never. And so he now has his diagnosis, and you have decisions to make. Am I going back to school? All those dreams I had, am I going to pledge? Am I going to cross over? Am I going to continue in my in the major that I've chosen at this college? Am I going to continue this relationship with this guy? So, tell me, what were your thoughts? What did you decide to do? And how did you get to the place where everything that was up in the air and swirling around in your head all came together and you made a blueprint for your success?
Well, when we left the whole clinic, he still denied,
Mm-hmm.
of course. I was still in like total shock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm positive. He's saying he not. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking at that particular. I really don't know what I was thinking as far as like, with him, with his like, oh no, I don't have it.
Right.
But I was in a sense of, since you say you don't have it, I don't want to be with you anymore. I did in my mind, and it was like a great card play. I would say if a person plays cards. Now I don't play cards like that except Uno, but I think that's a great card play to be like, okay, well, I have HIV and I don't want to put you at risk.
No,
to be with you no more.
So
he still wanted to be with me.
But wait a minute, so instead of saying we done, since you don't want to accept this, oh, I don't want to put you at risk. I have your best interest at heart.
But you didn't have my best interest at heart, of course. Right. When you gave my name. and not only that, no conversation.
Right.
To say, well, hey, because the conversation didn't happen either. He didn't come tell me, oh, well, I possibly put you at risk, but now you still want to be with me.
Wow.
That's because you have it, Nucka. You still got it. So, and with that being said, with him not, being like that, it put me in sort of like a shutdown mode where I was going to hide it and not tell anybody. So meaning I hid it from family. I hid it from my best friends for that time.
Mhm.
They of course know now. My roommate who I was rooming with, she was like one of my best friends, so she knows now. But at that time, I wasn't telling anybody because I didn't know what to do with this. This is like, this is something big, and of course, because I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna die. And even though the social worker spoke life into me, I'm like, I don't think I want to do this no more in regards to school. So of course I didn't pledge. I didn't finish out there. I finished out the semester, but after that, I was like, this is a lot. And I just need to like kind of like figure this out right now.
And because we didn't have a lot of information, and give us the year, this was
90.
1990, we didn't have a lot of information then, so you didn't even know I might be able to pass this on to my roommate. I might
Right.
be able to pass this on to my loved ones, because in 1990s, people thought that if I sat at the table and had a meal with someone who was HIV positive, I'm going to finish my meal and walk out the door. Now I'm HIV positive. you know
Right.
so if I touch them, if I kiss them, if I go to the bathroom behind them, I can be infected. So the fear, not only of your life, but how you interacting with other people, can they be infected? Can I hurt someone else? I don't want to hurt anyone else the way I've been hurt.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So now that you've come to the point of, okay, I finished out the semester, I'm not going to pledge. Okay, I'm HIV positive. Where am I going from here?
I went home and I was like, oh, I don't know what it was. Um, I think the following year had came, like, they was talking about, going back to school, following semester, and out of the blue, I'm like, I'm going into the military, even though I know it was positive. But I told my grandmother that I was like, I'm going into the military. And then after that, I think I had went to a different HBCU for a semester.
Mhm.
But that didn't work out because I was like just unhappy. I was just like in a very unhappy, miserable space right now because I was like, if I go back to school, he's gonna follow me because that's what started happening. I would show up at my mom's house and he would just pop up. I'm like, what are you doing, bruh? I would get actually upset with
What
him,
you
and
doing?
I didn't know that my mom was telling him. I figured out later that my mom was telling him that I was coming home, and because he would just like pop up, and it would aggravate my nerve. Even to the point, I don't know if you know this or not. I know you heard my story that when he would pop up, he had gotten married and had 3 kids. So of course I know he of course put his wife at risk. I don't know how those babies were doing, what happened. I know he eventually died years later because he's no longer here. Um, yeah, so I don't know the outcome with that, but I would always throw that in his face. Like, so your wife has it too? This is when I was like, doing speaking engagements. So I was like, on the rise up, becoming kind of big in New York. So I'm like, how's your wife doing? She have HIV? And he would like give me this look like, yo, for real, you really doing this? Like, how you gonna like, do this? But yeah, you need to do this. Like I'm
But
living my life. I'm doing what I'm doing in New York.
but you're popping up everywhere. Why are you doing a pop-up, bro? Are you jacking the box? Why you keep coming around?
He was
We've
still popping
done them.
up, trying to sleep with me and everything, trying to be with me. And I'm like, no, you're married.
So now
And
that
then even to the point where like once that it really turned me off. And after that, I was just like really turned off that I think I had like told my mom because
Mhm.
she was like, oh well, I really love Kevin. And that's when I broke it down to my mother. I said, well, Kevin gave your daughter HIV. My Kevin, your Kevin.
Wow. So you were keeping his secret.
I was keeping a secret
Oh my
as
goodness.
well.
Wow. You were the keeper of the secret. And then you had to tell your mother, stop telling this guy my business, because first of all, he's the one who infected me. Second of all, he's married with children.
And my mom didn't care. My mother wanted me to be with him. So I was like, no, he's married. he's married. No, like I don't want to be with him. I want to be with him. Like
Wow.
it just like turned me off. Then my
Right.
mom was like willing for me to like step in and be the like the heart, not the heartbreak, but like the ring, the woman, the other woman.
The mistress. Well, you know what
Yeah,
she
to
was
be with
probably
him. Like,
thinking?
no.
She was probably thinking, who's going to accept her now that she's positive? So this is her only chance for love. Because remember, this is the 90s. We're just coming out of it's not a gay man's disease. Other people can be infected. We're still at the level of, but it's those other people, not people like me.
Right.
So her thing is, it's bad enough that you have this. Don't give up your only chance to be loved, even if it is a side thing.
I never even thought about it like that. You're the first person to say that. I
Yeah.
never even thought about it like that
Mhm.
because my mom was like, yeah, like she wants me to be happy, and he didn't care, that I was positive. So like, I never thought you were the first person to brought that up.
And then also him being positive and you being positive, it couldn't get any worse. We didn't know then that every time that you're reinfected, it's
Mm-hmm.
another strain, making it even harder for any of your medications to respond well in your body. We were just so ignorant in the beginning, so ignorant.
Very.
And it really feels like we're still ignorant, because the fact that we have newly diagnosed cases when something as simple as a condom, a dental dam, or just a hell no, can keep you safer.
Right.
I still hear guys, young men say, oh, I can look at her and tell. Boy, I will bring 10 of the baddest babes in front of you that makes Megan Thee Stallion, Gorilla, and all the rest of them look like they little kids playing in a sandbox, and every last one of those women will be positive. You can't just look at someone, but this is where we are today with this. So now you tell your mother, Ma, listen, the last thing I'm going to be is a side chick
Right.
to this fool, because now you realize not only is he selfish, but he's absolutely in denial. He's a person that is just running through life, like I say, with gasoline drawers on through hell and not caring that he's getting, burnt up or what's happening in his life. So you now have to regroup and you're like, you know what? I'm making a plan now. What was your plan after all of that and just getting him out of your life and not listening to your mother in your ear about, get love where you can, now I'm focused. I'm going to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So tell us.
I moved to New York. I left the state of South Carolina.
Mhm.
I decided that I was ready to go. Because at that point I wasn't seeing no doctors.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't seeing any therapists. I didn't know nobody who looked like me. I didn't know anyone that had the same diagnosis as me. So I packed up and I left.
Okay.
Yeah. Whatever I couldn't take, I sold or gave away.
And you came to New York.
And I came to New York, landed in Brooklyn, in Flatbush.
Oh, Cypress. Boom.
and
Yeah.
Brooklyn. Bedford-Stuyvesant.
Listen,
At first, and then I found my own apartment. But yeah,
one of the hot spots back in the 90s when it came to HIV. So like all of the new technology, all of the new information, you were able to get like this because Brooklyn was one of the first that jumped on. We got to get education out. We got to get education out. It was funny. They were quicker than Manhattan was with the education. If I'm not mistaken, Washington Heights is in Brooklyn. I'm a Long Island.
No, Washington Heights is in Manhattan. I thought Washington Heights.
Okay.
Isn't that like up in Manhattan, like almost near the Bronx?
Okay. Washington Heights is in Manhattan. And I'm referring to Washington Heights because there was a grassroots project that started that is very big now, and it's Project Renewal. Right. And then in Brooklyn was the Brooklyn AIDS Task Force.
Task Force. Mm-hmm.
And it started this small. And I remember there was a girl that worked there, a young lady, her name was Neka. And I remembered her because she was Tanzanian. And before we had the sides cut off, you know, and they became fashionable, Neka had one side cut off, real low to a Caesar. She had lines, and all of this was over here in locks. I don't know where Seneca is in the world, but she left her impact because I was sitting in the train and I was like, oh, that hair. I don't know what it was. But I'm mentioning these spots because they were birthed out of the need for our people to have services that touched our people, our communities, to understand. And I'm not saying that white social workers or white doctors or Indian doctors or Spanish doctors couldn't understand what we were going through. But the Black community has such a dynamic that I hate to say it sometimes, but if you're not Black, you can't understand.
Right. Exactly.
So when it came to a Black woman infected by a Black man, it was another Black woman that could understand that it was love that put me in this position.
Right.
It was love. I was in love, you know, and dealing with women, I always say white women and Black women, there's different dynamics. Again, she stays in a terrible relationship. She got a house, a Winnebago, a trip in the summer, a trip in the winter, and 401k and IRAs. We stay in relationships that are bad because he comes on the weekends and he brings milk and eggs and butter and bread. And
Right.
he'll come on a Friday. I may not have him Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but when he comes on Friday, he comes with something. And he comes with a story that envelops my heart. And people will say, well, that's stupid. It's not stupid. And it's just not our culture, but our culture can understand that.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know what I'm saying? We could sit down with other women and we could say, child, I would have busted him in the head. You know, he did that, or I would have left him if he did that. And you're like, yeah, I did leave him. And then we laugh and say, but you let him back in, right? And
Right. Mm-hmm.
we're cracking up. So to have people that look like us, that are fighting in the struggle with us to make sure that we live healthier, it absolutely was needed. I worked at the Long Island Minority AIDS Coalition. You know, that was birthed out of Dr. Brian Harper and Soraya Sampson that said, hey, people of color, we got to have some place to go. We have to have services that, you know, intertwine with, you know, who we are. We are. So you came to New York, you were able to find that camaraderie, you were able to find services, you know, talk to people that understood your culture.
Mm-hmm. And got educated. That was the
Ah,
main thing too. And when I started seeing like people that look like me, I was like,
mhm.
because there was nobody in South Carolina that I could like look to. And like, yeah, it was like an aha moment. Like, this is the place, and this is, you know, been designed for you. Because, and I think the main reason I left was when I told my family that I was like, you know, HIV positive, because I started calling people, and then the other people, you know, the phone game, you know.
Mhm.
So I told like one or two people, and everybody else they just took it upon themselves to call and tell everybody that I was HIV positive, because there was some people that told me that they knew, and I'm like, okay, I
Well,
didn't
how
have
you
to.
know? Well, A Mama Sis told Miss Carol, and Miss Carol told Sister Maybell. And Sister Maybell was praying for you at prayer service. and that's how it came out. And you
Yes,
like the whole prayer service? No. Yeah, everybody that came to prayer meeting, we was praying for you, baby. You know, that's our community. That's our community, you know?
And I had family members that didn't believe me because I didn't look like it.
Right.
Who I got retested, and when I overheard my grandmother, my maternal, my mom's mother, have a conversation with someone, and they was like, "Oh, they said she has 2 years to live," and I said, "That's," and myself is so like, the devil is a liar. I'm up out of here. I'm leaving.
Mm.
Y'all gonna give me a death certificate, and I ain't there yet? Oh no. Yeah, the doctor gave me 2 years to live, and this was in 1990. I think 1994. Yeah, 4 years afterwards. Because I wasn't on no meds or nothing. I didn't see no doctor, nothing for like 4 whole years.
And you know, he gave you those 2 years to live because AZT was taking people out. It was,
and I wasn't even on that.
It was supposed to be the wonder drug. So tell me, so 4 years you had no medication at all?
No medication, seeing no doctors, doing nothing, living life, working, and going to church and holding on to that secret.
All right.
And in the meantime, between time, bumping into Kevin, because my mom would tell him I was coming around, and he would all of a sudden just like pop up.
So in those 4 years, did you have a relationship with another male, or you?
One male, he's good. One guy I did have, I was like involved with, and then I was like, okay, no, you can't be doing this.
Did you tell him? No.
But he found out when, like, I told his sister-in-law. Mm-hmm. He went and got tested, and he's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you told the sister-in-law, but you didn't tell him?
No. And I think it became like my breaking moment because I hadn't told nobody. So that was like my breaking moment. And that's when she was like, well, you know what? You probably need to tell your family because y'all ain't on good terms right now. She said, probably this right here will be the thing that breaks it. They kind of like sort of mends things back together. Because I was on the outside of my family. I was like living my life. I wasn't like, I didn't have my own place, but I was living with someone. I was paying them rent. I was like doing my own thing. And, paying nobody else no mind and just like living a life doing whatever. And when I told her that, and she was like, okay, well, we're going to find out whether, brother-in-law is okay. I'm going to name his name, but brother-in-law is okay. And, make sure he gets tested. And there was another guy that I was dealing with, but we weren't sexually active. I was like, no, I ain't doing this. Like, no, I'm sleep with the whole church. No, I don't do that. But I said, we just like went out, but nothing happened. Like, we didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. And she was like, okay. But she was like, we'll contact brother-in-law. And then she said, you need to really tell your family. Mm-hmm. So, and that's when I had family to come, and they didn't believe me and got me retested. And then I think within the fall after I heard the doctor say 2 years, I think within 2 weeks I was gone.
Wow.
I was gone.
So you came to New York, and that's when you started your meds.
Yeah, I started my meds, started getting training and things of that sort.
Okay. Yeah. All right, listen, we're going to stop right here because part 2, if you like part 1, part 2 is going to be even better. And that is because Niko is going to discuss with us how she was able to not only start with a regimen to keep her healthy, but how she took her diagnosis to educate other people so they could be healthy. So make sure, if you like this, you're going to have to come back for part 2. Niko, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you telling us our story. I know many, many people are going to, just look at their sexual health after this. If you're single and, you're out there dating and you have partners, you're going to take a moment to look at what you're doing so that you can remain healthy, because the truth of the matter is HIV is still out there.
Yes, it is.
I don't care about the undetected. Undetected just means that the viral load is low, but you still have HIV. And we're going to end here because we'll talk about viral load. We'll talk about the difference between HIV and AIDS, part 2, to give you some information. And as I always say when I end all my shows, y'all keep doing what you're doing until what you're doing gets done. Peace and blessings. Peace and blessings.
Like, whoa, man, there goes a woman of God. They be looking like, whoa, man, there goes a woman of God. I'm a woman, I'm a woman, I'm a woman.